Tonight, a man in his 20s has died after an ATV crash in St. George's over the weekend. That story, and as proceedings begin again in Natwashish, we'll bring you the latest from the inquiry into the treatment of Innu in the child protection system.
The town council in Botwood is surprised and disappointed over the public defacing of a pride crosswalk in town.
I am a fair bit disappointed that something like this could happen here in Botwood.
That story tonight on Here and Now.
Canada Games is expected this August, bringing in thousands of people, but also the danger of a measles outbreak.
That could certainly have a big impact on the games, and it could have an impact, on the province as well.
I'll have that story coming up on Here and Now.
This is CBC Here and Now.
Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. We begin tonight with a tragedy on the West Coast. A 28-year-old man is dead following an ATV crash early Saturday morning in St. George's. The RCMP say they received a report of a crash around 3:45 a.m. The ATV was found in the ditch of a residential area. The driver was a lone occupant and was found dead at the scene. Police say the investigation continues. Well, now to Labrador. The inquiry into the treatment of Innu children in the child protection system resumed in Natwashish today. Commissioners heard from a former chief who says the Innu need more involvement in the child protection system if it's going to be effective. Heather Gillis reports.
This is the Healing Lodge in Natwashish. Over the next 2 weeks, it's home to the inquiry into Innu in the child protection system.
I want to see things change in the CSSD. And I want the kids to come home to their homes.
Today, the inquiry heard from Gregory Rich. He's a former band council chief and grand chief of the Innu Nation. Today, he's the CEO of the Innu Development Partnership. He wants the child protection system to stop removing children from their Innu communities, language, and culture. Rich says Innu need to be involved in child protection, but feels instead they face policy roadblocks from the provincial government.
I think if there's going to be effective department of CSSD, Innu people need to be involved. Because we Innu experience these damaging effects.
Rich says when children are removed from the community for foster care, they come home different. He wants to see a transition plan for when they come home. Rich also spoke about the history of Davis Inlet and the years before the community was relocated, how conditions were poor, no running water or sewage systems. He says many turned to gas-sniffing alcohol and drugs to escape. In 1992, 5 of his children and another child died in a tragic house fire.
There was a lot of guilt, there was a lot of shame, and there was a lot of regrets.
Over the following days, the inquiry will hold circle hearings looking into the death of 2 young men from Natwashish. 17-year-old James Poker, who froze to death on the sea ice between Natwashish and Hopedale in 2015, and Jacob Collins. He died by suicide at the Labrador Correctional Centre in 2020. Inquiry lead counsel Caitlin Urquhart says families requested the investigations because they believe their children's time in the child protection system contributed to their deaths.
We need to know better to do better, and so these hearing circles are intended to help us understand what has happened so that we can create a better future for Innu children.
After 2 weeks of hearings here in Natwashish, the inquiry will start up again in September and run through the fall and winter. The commissioners will deliver their report to the provincial government in October 2026. Heather Gillis, CBC News, Natwashish, the Mushwa Innu First Nation.
4 wildfires are currently burning in parts of central Newfoundland, but 2 are considered under control. All of the fires are located in rural areas. Officials say structures of municipalities are currently not at risk. One fire is out of control near Burnt Dam, a Newfoundland and Labrador hydro control structure in the southern interior of the island. However, no damage has been reported. Water bombers are now working on putting out the fires. In other news, it's believed those fires were caused by lightning strikes, and lightning also struck a Newfoundland Power transmission line in Conception Bay North. That left around 2,200 people in the area without power on Saturday evening. By Sunday night, all power had been restored. Newfoundland Power says the repair required special equipment due to the remote location of the lightning strike. Well, now to the town of Botwood, where the defacing of a pride crosswalk has council surprised and disappointed. The words "Walk of Sham" were found spray painted on one of the 3 pride crosswalks last week. The CBC's Troy Turner visited Botwood and has more.
For 3 years, there hasn't been an issue with pride crosswalks in the town of Botwood. Now, the town is scratching its head over last week's defacing of a crosswalk near a local school.
A bit surprised, but a little bit and more upset, I guess, for somebody to come out and do that to something that represents something.
On Thursday morning, residents woke up seeing what was likely intended to be Walk of Shame spray painted across the Pride crosswalk on Water Street. It's one of 3 Pride crosswalks in the town and has sat untouched for years.
There were no objections come forward to council when we did it. We had a nice few people said they were happy to see them there, but as regards to objections, there weren't any. Council always been wanted to be part of inclusion and diversity, so 3 years ago we made a motion to install a couple of pride crosswalks in the town for the summers or the season. In winter time, of course, they wear away, but every year since that we've installed them. And this year we made a motion to have 3 pride crosswalks.
Those 2 other crosswalks, located in the downtown area of Botwood, were untouched. The deputy mayor says the defacing doesn't represent the thoughts of the community.
Everybody's entitled to their opinion. I'm sure out there somewhere there are people that dislike things and dislike this and that kind of stuff. So I don't think it's rampant or the majority of people. I think more or less is a few people are just a bit disgruntled about that aspect of life, and he showed that by doing what he did.
The town of Botwood says it's leaving the matter in the hands of the RCMP, who are actively investigating. In the meantime, the deputy mayor says this has not deterred the town of Botwood, and it will continue to support diversity and inclusion despite this isolated incident. Troy Turner, CBC News, Botwood.
Now to some politics. The number of high-profile Liberal MHAs not running in the next provincial election has grown again. Today, Siobhan Cody posted this video on social media.
I want to share with you that my time in political life is concluding. I will not be seeking re-election in the next provincial election. Serving as your representative and as a minister in government has been the honor of my lifetime. It has been a decade marked by extraordinary challenges and remarkable progress, and I'm incredibly proud of what we have accomplished together.
Well, Cody was first elected as MHA in St. John's West in 2015. She served as Natural Resources Minister and most recently as the Deputy Premier and Finance Minister. Before provincial politics, Cody was a member of Parliament for a few years in the riding of St. John's South Mount Pearl. She's now among several Liberal MHAs who will not be running in the next election. Andrew Parsons, Perry Trimper, John Abbott, and former Premier Andrew Furey are also out of the running. The next provincial election must happen sometime before mid-October of this year. The RNC says there was a suspicious fire in St. John's over the weekend. Around 5 a.m. on Saturday, police responded to a structure fire on Dillon Crescent in Shea Heights. The RNC says it appears to have been deliberately set on fire. While 2 homes were damaged, there were no injuries. Police are now looking for any video footage from that area. Well, in other news, the City of St. John's has come up with a new plan to combat vacant storefronts downtown. It's called the Urban Art Gallery Beautification Plan, and it's all about making those empty areas look a bit nicer.
We've found of course, that there are some disappointing amount of vacant buildings down there. And it's something that was noted in by the public, at times by council. We had a downtown session, a study session and a feedback session with a lot of people that own and work downtown and tourism people and everything. And several issues came up, and one of them was the vacant spaces. What can we do? How can we at least improve those properties for the summer? Particularly with Canada Games coming, of course. This is what sort of spurred this a little bit.
Right.
So we said, well, let's think about perhaps doing what we did in 2017. So what we've done is we've made the offer free of charge. We would install these on behalf of the owners if they just allow us to go in there, and they'll basically be stuck on. We ask them to keep it for a year or until they actually get to work on the building. And we've taken the art from our city art collection. Every year we spend $20,000 and buy local art and display it around city buildings. And we've taken them and blown them up, and they will be stuck onto the front windows of many of the buildings down there.
Well, rug hookers from across the country are crafting a special project for the Canada Games. Despite never meeting in person, textile artists are collaborating on a giant commemorative piece spanning more than 8 feet by 9 feet tall. It's called the Tapestry of Pride.
We've been working on and organized a volunteer community initiative in support and to commemorate the Canada Games in St. John's in August. It really is a dream. It's a very large tapestry is what we're calling it, and it's a framed piece that incorporates 42 individual rug hookings from all across Canada, done by fiber artists that have come together to support the initiative, volunteering their time, their materials, postage to send all of the pieces from everywhere to come to us to put together for this piece. The outside perimeter is all of our Newfoundland and Labrador pieces depicting various scenes in the province. The next inset row of 15 inch by 15 inch are all the provinces and territories represented, and then in the center 8 blocks are all of the 19 games. So Newfoundland and Labrador is embracing the country, who is embracing the games, who's creating a legacy. Yeah, it's overwhelming sometimes. Humbling, pride. I use pride in a way, I almost feel like I shouldn't be proud because I feel so humbled at the same time, you know? But this is something that that's come together beyond any dream, like just beyond. We're in the process of putting the whole piece together for the final tapestry. We had multiple submissions for various provinces, some of the games, lots for Newfoundland and Labrador, and we've really had to go through a selection process because every piece that came in was breathtaking and unique and creative and different. So right now it's the putting of everything together, make sure there's good flow and color, texture, style. I wanted every piece to stand out both individually and collectively. So we're in the process of finalizing those details. The tapestry itself, the final piece, is going to be on display at the Convention Centre during the Games, and they've told us that it should be housed at the Confederation Building post-Games, so it has a home. And that was the important piece, that this has a home before, during, and after, because it's such an important piece. It's such an important collective of Canadian pride and community pride. And in our world today, you know, and in where we are in this world and in Canada, I think it's a great representation of how we can come together as a community.
Well, Conception Bay South's annual summer festival kicked off over the weekend. The Kelligrews Soiree is a week-long celebration filled with all kinds of activities, including live entertainment, community get-togethers, and markets like this one over the weekend. Events continue all week long.
Well, it's certainly going to have some nice weather as we head through the next couple of days, with some warm temperatures really starting to move in. Now, today, nice, upper 20s or mid 20s, I should say, for parts of central, up across Labrador as well, upper teens, low 20s. That will continue. In fact, things are going to get even warmer as we head towards the weekend, as we have a heat dome that moves in. We'll see some clearing skies tomorrow, west to east, but some showers before that. that. I'll get into all the details coming up.
Out.
Well, with the Canada Games coming up in just over a month, NL Health Services is warning that an influx of measles cases might be coming too. The CBC's Arlette Lazarenko has more.
In August, thousands of athletes, coaches, and tourists will make their way here for the Canada Games. And with cases of measles across the country not slowing down, that's putting Newfoundland and Labrador's public health on standby.
We wanted to make sure that we were preparing in the event that we did see a case of measles come here during the Canada Games.
Measles is plaguing many parts of the country, mainly in Alberta and Ontario, with over 3,500 cases this year alone, as well as one death, according to the federal government. Fitzgerald says a committee of health department officials, the Health Authority, and Canada Games have been meeting regularly to come up with an action plan. Even though vaccination rates in this province are high, Fitzgerald says measles could use up a lot of public health resources.
There may be people who are under-immunized that are coming with that group, and so maybe more prone to developing measles if they were exposed. And so that could certainly have a big impact on the games, and it could have an impact, on the province as well.
Canada Games Host Society CEO Karen Sheriff says they sent letters to teams asking for vaccine records, but they are not mandatory.
If somebody does show symptoms, they will be asked for proof of vaccination. If they can produce that, their symptoms will be monitored. If they cannot produce a proof of vaccination, then they will be tested for measles. During that time, they will remain in isolation until their test result is back.
So how would measles impact the games? Sheriff says it's hard to say if any games would be cancelled because it would depend on the severity of the cases and ultimately directions from NL Health Services. In the meantime, Fitzgerald says people can check their vaccination status with local public health offices and get a vaccination appointment if they need to. Arlette Lazarenko, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, staying with the Canada Games, the event can be an opportunity for creating long-lasting connections, or as two women from New Brunswick recently found out, reconnecting after a long absence. The CBC's Adam Walsh was on a Marine Atlantic ferry last month following the Canada Games torch when he heard about this chance encounter.
We're on Nancy's bus tour she's from Sussex, New Brunswick. And we got to be on there, and
our first stop, we were in the parking lot of a gas station in Nolac.
Yes.
And we were staring at each other and going, I know you're from somewhere. Is it where you're from? Where did you work? And we couldn't quite figure it out. And after a few hours of sitting on the bus, it hit me. Soccer! Canada Games! 2005.
In Regina, in Saskatchewan. And it's just amazing that it's been 20 years that we finally got together again. And it's just hard to believe that we're here. Canada Games is here. It's just amazing. And our sons played on the same team. It's just incredible. It really is.
So what's it like reconnecting after 20 years? With all that time, yet at the same time, you just seem so close with one another. Seem so happy to talk and then rekindle this friendship.
We're just that type of people. We're New Brunswickers.
We're both gabbers.
And we just like to be friends, and we've been friends for years. And it's just overwhelming to meet again after Canada Games in 2005. So.
It carries on, I think, for the kids, for leadership, for learning how to, heaven forbid, follow orders. Not orders, but you know what I mean. Listen to the coach. And they were young. They were 17 and 18 years old. And I think it has carried through. Our sons still both play soccer, and their children now play soccer. So it's going through the generations.
Ashley, beautiful day here in the east, and the weather has been just so wonderful lately because we're seeing a lot of this sunshine and the warm temperatures, but we're also getting some rain in between, which is great.
The much needed rain. Yeah, a lot of that came with thunderstorms though for Saturday, even sparking a couple of fires through parts of Central. But yes, very much needed rain. Those temperatures today, quite mild out there. We've not a whole lot of humidity in play, especially up across Labrador, but we do have a little bit further east. It feels like 30 degrees right now in St. John's with that actual temperature at about 24. Even through Central, a little bit of humidity. Temperatures in the 25-degree range for Badger, feels more like 27. Cooler though towards the coast, only in the teens. And then Labrador, Happy Valley, Goose Bay still sitting at 24 degrees. And then even towards the coast, right now Cartwright sitting at about 22 this afternoon. But as we head through the next couple of days, a heat dome is going to set up. That's essentially a big ridge of high pressure that extends in the upper atmosphere. And when we get high pressure, we get sinking air, and that sinking air essentially traps all of that heat. And that is going to continue as we head through Thursday. Really going to start to feel that heat with temperatures likely in the upper 20s, even low 30s possible starting Thursday, well, really Wednesday into Thursday, and then continuing through the weekend. So certainly lots of heat. The good news is not a whole lot of humidity with this one, which is nice, but it certainly will feel warm. For now, though, we are going to be seeing the chance of some more showers as we head through the night tonight. Some of those just well to the west of the west coast. We saw a few showers around the Bonavista Peninsula, northern Avalon. Those will generally continue, but we can see some of those starting to make their way towards the west coast of the island. There's lots more where that came from, back further west, and yes, further west, and they'll continue to move in as we head through tonight. So expect the chance of some showers, mainly for eastern Newfoundland, but the periods of rain will develop as we head through the overnight tonight. Not a whole lot happening across Labrador. By the time we get into the early morning hours, so we'll see some showers starting in the north. And there's that line of showers. Pretty much, like I said, starting in the southwest in the early morning hours. By the time we get to 5, 6 o'clock tomorrow morning, we'll start to see some of those showers further east as well. The Bonavista Peninsula, and then eventually the Avalon as we get into the morning. Temperatures tonight will sit somewhere between 11 to 13 degrees across the island. Generally light winds. Northern Peninsula a tad cooler than that, only in the single digits. Same thing for Lab West. Otherwise between 10 to 14 degrees. And those winds will be out of the west somewhere between 20 to 40 kilometers per hour. As we continue through the day, though, those showers will work their way east, and then we'll start to see some of those showers for Labrador extend a little bit further south as well. Eventually, into the afternoon, the skies will start clearing for the southwest. So you'll start in the west, and then they'll clear to the east, although we'll likely hang on to some more shower activity for a good chunk of the day for eastern Newfoundland. Eventually, you'll see clearing, but it won't be until likely after sunset for most of eastern Newfoundland, and then going to set the stage for Wednesday or Tuesday night rather to be fairly quiet, and then a fairly nice start to your Wednesday as well. Temperatures tomorrow will sit in the upper teens, low 20s for most. Winds will be out of the northwest tomorrow, so those of you in north-facing coast, you'll see temperatures a little cooler than that, though through central. Mid to upper 20s will be the daytime high. And then for Labrador, coastal areas generally in the upper teens, although south will sit into the 20s, and that'll be the story for central areas of Labrador as well. Lab West around 20 degrees. But the winds right across the board for Labrador will be out of the northwest, and they'll be gusting somewhere between 40 to 50 kilometers per hour. So like I said, right now it is going to be warm, but as we head towards the end of the week, those temperatures really warming up, and I'll have those details coming up a little later.
Thanks, Ashley. Well, clowning around might seem like a bit of fun and foolishness, but for one instructor and her students, clowning is serious business. Sam Chalk has been teaching the art form this summer, and she visited the CBC studio in St. John's to give reporter Maddie Ryan a lesson.
Why did you want to become a student of Sam's and become a clown?
Well, it wasn't really something that I knew anything about, but on Instagram, somebody shared this clown college poster, and it kind of piqued my interest. I'm an artist. I thought it might be a good way to kind of break out of my shell a bit.
I have like a background as like an amateur theater artist, which has been fun, and I've taken classes with Sam in the past. I just realized while doing classes with Sam that going down the route of clown was the route of theater art that I wanted to explore the most.
A clown's job is to make the audience laugh. So if you don't make the audience laugh, then you're not doing your job as a clown. And where this humor comes from is the performer's unique pleasure to play. I think that the natural humor that people just come with here, people have more experience with clowning in general just because of our culture. I think it's very deep-rooted into the way that we are with each other.
I was hoping to get some money.
So this is the exercise that tells you what your clown skin is, what your clown costume will be.
Okay.
I'm going to beat my drum. When the third beat happens at the end, you are going to turn around and you're going to scare me. Boo! Teddy bear.
Okay.
The costume that you get, the clown skin that you get, is not a character.
Mm-hmm.
It's just something for your clown to wear that makes them look ridiculous, essentially.
Okay.
So if you were taking this class, you would have a few weeks to come up with your costume. You can go to samchalk.com/clowncollege to see all the info about these classes and to sign up.
July 7th at the LSPU Hall, we have our student showcase, and we'll all be performing a little bit of our clowns. There's a show at 7 and there's another show at 9, and you can get your tickets in advance at the LSPU Hall website, or you can get tickets at the door.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The former Grand Chief of the Innu Nation says removing children from communities to put them in foster care is causing serious damage. Former Chief Gregory Rich spoke at the inquiry into Innu children in the child protection system in Natwashish today. Rich says he's seen firsthand the damage it causes to children and families.
When a child is removed from family, I have seen it in Davison and I have seen it in Natwashish. I share my thoughts with the departments at the government level meetings when I was a leader. And I stressed out the damage effects of what the department is doing to the child and also to the family members. You know, when a child is removed from the community, from his family, that's the process it starts of damaging the child and also to family members. Why? Because there's a loss of culture, there's a loss of identity, there's a loss of language. Once that child is removed out from the community and placed in non-native home outside Natwashish and outside Davis. And those effects are long-term. Those damaging effects are long-term. I have seen youth coming into the community, completely different people. Believe me, I've seen it. And that's how the damaging it is when a child is removed. And I stressed out to the departments of what are you doing to a child. And I kind of feel they want to brush it off when I speak to them. They change the subject. They talk about a different issue. I know that because I see that happen many times. And I want to stress out this again. If you want the department to work, get Innu involved from day one, not after day two, from day one.
The CEO of NL Health Services says silos within the healthcare system is a big challenge in this province. Pat Parfrey says the system needs to have a more collaborative spirit to succeed.
When you've been on the show before, we talked about silos. One of the issues with coming into the health court, it's like, oh, there are silos everywhere. But now we're talking about people, right, in this room who work across departments. Dr. Parfrey, I'll ask you this question. Do you see these silos kind of coming down for where things are supposed to be headed for the health accord?
There is no doubt that the attempt to have horizontal connections between departments and even within communities, the capacity of their silos to be able to connect to ensure that there are ways of being able to access and help vulnerable people and ways of being able to help individuals make better choices is dependent on getting away from the silos. However, the silos are part of our culture and they're really hard to break down. Yeah. And if you don't keep at it, the silo comes back up again. So change management is the biggest challenge that we've got, both in the health system, healthcare delivery system and in the social system, to try and ensure that we are actually capable of breaking down these silos.
So how do we stay on top of that?
You've got to keep at it.
Just keep at it.
You've got to be persistent.
Yeah. Leadership matters.
And consistent.
Okay.
Well, the province is investing over $100,000 to develop tourism in Gander. Government says the money will go toward purchasing equipment to improve experiences and increase capacity at festivals and events hosted by the town of Gander, as well as helping other groups like the Gander production of Come From Away. Well, upset and disappointed. That's how the deputy mayor of Botwood is feeling after someone defaced one of the community's rainbow crosswalks. But Chris Ivaney says this won't stop the council from continuing to promote diversity and inclusion in the community.
Well, council always been wanting to be part of inclusion and diversity. So 3 years ago, we made a motion to install a couple of pride crosswalks in the town. for the summers or the season. Like in wintertime, of course, they wear away, but every year since that we've installed them. And this year we made a motion to have 3 pride crosswalks.
Is this the first time that you've seen this happen here in Botwood?
Yes, for the time we've had them there, it's the first instance of any kind of defacing or stuff on our crosswalks, yes.
How surprised were you when you found out that this happened last week?
I was a bit surprised, but a little bit and more upset, I guess, for somebody to come out and do that to something that represents something.
Take me back to the beginning when you first put them in. What kind of response did the community have to the installation of these crosswalks?
We had there were no objections come forward to council when we did it. We had a nice few people said they were happy to see them there, but as regards to objections, there weren't any.
Do you think this is a sentiment that's prevalent here in Botwood, that people think it is a shame?
I don't think so. Everybody's entitled to their opinion. I'm sure out there somewhere there are people that dislike things and dislike this and that kind of stuff. So I don't think it's rampant or the majority of people. I think more or less is a few people are just a bit disgruntled about that aspect of life, and they showed that by doing what they did.
How disappointing is it to see that?
Well, for me personally, I think it's very disappointing. And for the town council, we went for the most. We want to be part of inclusion and diversity. We want to show it, so it's a gesture on the town's behalf to do that. So I am a fair bit disappointed that something like this could happen here in Botwood.
Well, a prolific author from this province died last week. Born in St. Anthony in 1939, Earl Pilgrim was a retired forest ranger, wildlife protection officer, and champion boxer. But he became best known as the author of over 15 books, many of them novels exploring the province's history and culture. Earl Pilgrim was 85 years old. Well, ball hockey players from this province are returning home with some shiny new hardware this weekend.
Unbelievable high drama here in Poperin as Canada breaks it all out. Shot score!
That's Newfoundlander Andy Knight scoring the game-winning overtime goal in the finals for Team Canada at the International Street and Ball Hockey World Junior Championships. Team Canada beat Czechia 8-7 in a nail-biter of a game. Knight is one of 3 players from this province competing on the men's under-20 team, along with teammates Matteo Rotundi and Scott Kirby. In addition to the men's team taking home the top prize, the Team Canada under-20 women took home silver at the Ball Hockey Championships, which were also held in Slovakia over the weekend. Abigail Fleet, Brooklyn Kitchen, Casey Drover, Haley Ryan, Julia Butler, and Molly Gill are the 7 players from this province who represented Team Canada on the women's side. Congratulations to all the players on both teams. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is in Washington, his 3rd trip this year for a face-to-face meeting with U.S. President Donald Trump. There's a renewed push for a ceasefire with Hamas. It comes as Israel carries out deadly airstrikes in Gaza. Tom Perry has the latest from Jerusalem.
Both U.S. President Donald Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu were talking in positive terms about what they expect to come out of this meeting. Donald Trump, a bit more of a salesman. He was far more upbeat in his expectations. Trump was traveling from New Jersey, where he's got a golf course, to Washington yesterday. Here's some of what he had to say.
There's a good chance we have a deal with Hamas during the coming week, pertaining to quite a few of the hostages. Yeah. You know, we've gotten a lot of the hostages out, but pertaining to the remaining hostages, quite a few of them will be coming out. We think we'll have that done this week.
So that was Donald Trump talking about getting some, at least some of the hostages out of Gaza. Of course, Hamas is still holding 50 living and dead hostages. For Benjamin Netanyahu, getting those hostages out is a main priority. He also says, though, he wants to make sure that Hamas no longer poses a threat to Israel. Meanwhile, in Qatar, Talks between the two sides, negotiating teams, are going on. Israeli media reports that Hamas is asking for some amendments to the ceasefire proposal, that Hamas wants to see the United Nations oversee aid shipments coming into Gaza. Right now it's the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, which is backed by Israel and the United States. There's apparently some disagreement as well over where Israeli troops would withdraw to during the 60-day truce. And there's some disagreement as well over the language for permanently ending this war, because part of the 60-day truce is supposed to include talks to have a permanent ceasefire, so an end to the war in Gaza. Hamas says it wants that, but Benjamin Netanyahu says that can only happen when Hamas lays down their weapons, gives up control in Gaza. So that's what he's fighting for, and they're going to have to try to work that out to reach a ceasefire agreement. Tom Perry, CBC News, Jerusalem.
Tragic situation unfolding in Texas. At least 89 people have died there after catastrophic flooding over the U.S. holiday weekend. Rescue teams say they're still looking for more victims as well as survivors.
And when we say search and rescue operations, that is boat, walking on the ground, dogs, drones. Again, keep personal drones out of the air, helicopters. We do have other assets that are continuing the search as well.
The flooding began on the 4th of July, catching many people off guard, including an all-girls camp on the banks of a river in central Texas. There, 27 people were killed from the rushing water. Dozens remain missing, including 10 children from the camp. Officials warn of more potential flooding as the ground remains saturated with water. The RCMP says it's ready to take on a bigger role in Nova Scotia after the province said it was considering the move. But as Shayna Luck tells us, this comes after a public inquiry found serious failures of the RCMP's response during the worst mass shooting in modern Canadian history.
The way Nova Scotia does policing isn't sufficient. That's the conclusion of the Provincial Justice Department after an outside company's review. It gathered feedback from 7,000 citizens and concluded the RCMP deserve a bigger role.
I do recognize that some people may be surprised with the direction that the department is going.
Surprised because of the conclusions of the public inquiry into how a gunman dressed as an RCMP officer was able to kill 22 people across the province. In 2023, it concluded there were deep issues within the RCMP. The RCMP acknowledged trust in the force was deeply damaged, but they say they've improved their public alert system and made additions to the emergency response team. They've done practice runs to get better and faster. And they're talking with police chiefs across the country about the Mass Casualty Commission's recommendations.
And we are always searching and trying to develop trust of Nova Scotians by doing excellent police work. And that'll be really the judge of how we're being judged.
The province's review concluded services aren't consistent. Coverage and response times aren't good enough, especially in rural areas. The department says municipalities that have their own police forces will need to meet a set of standards or switch to the RCMP.
Nova Scotians have told us that the current model of policing is not working.
Not everyone agrees the RCMP are the right way to go. One opposition party suggested it would be better to create a provincial police force.
I think that there are culture issues within the RCMP that wasn't talked about.
The RCMP already cover more than 80% of the province. The Justice Minister says this is the best way forward. The RCMP don't think there will be a problem getting people to do the job. They say they've already brought in more than 110 new recruits within the last year. Shayna Luck, CBC News, Halifax.
Well, a record-breaking moment in the music world. 1,353 people braved the rain in Germany to form the world's largest string orchestra. Imagine what that must be like in person. Musicians of all ages gathered to play in a town hall square in this West German city. The previous record was set in Hong Kong in 2018. This gathering beat that record by more than 300. The musicians performed Beethoven's Ode to Joy, known as the European anthem. right, time for a look at the long-range forecast, and things have been really nice and warming up even a bit more, I understand.
They are going to continue to warm up. Yes, that heat dome's going to be really the dominant weather feature as we head through to the weekend. So if you like the heat, you'll be very happy. If you don't like the heat, sorry. Heat
dome.
Yeah, let's take a look at what's going on. So as we head into Tuesday evening, we'll see the showers eventually ending, or at least the chance of showers eventually ending for the Avalon. And then we start to see that ridge of high pressure move in. That's going to keep things clear for the most part up across Labrador. Now we may see a little bit of cloud cover lingering for the north coast. That will move a little bit further south. It may even spark a few showers. I think they'll be very isolated in nature. But certainly a little bit of a chance there. And then across the island, not a whole lot to talk about as far as that weather goes through the day. Overall, daytime highs will really start to warm up. You'll notice it through central upper 20s, and then really most of the island will be sitting somewhere in the 20s. And then for Labrador, same thing. Towards the coast, there's that chance of showers that I was talking about. I do think they'll stick to the coast, but still that chance. And then we start to get into some of that mild air for central areas of Labrador and Lab West. So mid to upper 20s will be the story on Wednesday. As we head into Thursday, there's that shower chance again. That should move off. Thursday's going to be beautiful. It's going to be hot. For central, lots of sunshine, dry conditions as well. And then across the island, pretty much the same thing. Now, we may see a few spotty pop-up showers, but I think most of the weather will be just sunshine. And temperatures, again, warming up. So we're talking about low to mid 20s, maybe a little warmer through central, and then mid to upper 20s for central areas of Labrador, Lab West, and even towards the coast, your temperatures will be in the 20s through the day on Thursday as well. The long range forecast for St. John's and eastern Newfoundland, keeping temperatures a little cooler just because of the winds. So daytime highs will sit in the upper teens by the time we get into Friday. Saturday at this point, now, this is Folk Fest this weekend, but it does look like we'll see some rain on Saturday. I know that's not great news. Hopefully it changes, but for now, that's what it's looking like. Temperature around 17 degrees. And then for central, overall, you're also looking at the chance of some showers, although a little warmer, likely into the low 20s. And then for western Newfoundland, same thing, a little cooler though with your temperatures in the teens for your Saturday. Then for Labrador, pretty much sunshine across the board, very warm temperatures, very dry conditions as well. This is not going to be great for fire risk, so be fire smart. But overall, you're looking at your temperatures in the upper 20s. You may even reach the 30-degree mark by the time we get to late weekend there, or to the weekend, late week for sure. Our weather photo of the day, speaking of Labrador, was taken in Lab City. I just got another photo as well of the Northern Lights. Wow. So obviously been dancing around. Love it.
Stunning.
Love the green there. Thank you so much, Larry, for that photo. If you have any weather photos you'd like to share with us, send them to nlphotos@cbc.ca and we'll try and get them on the show.
That's incredible and spectacular too, because the lights on the ground are shining so brightly, yet you can see the vividness of the green, and
you know they were bright when.
Stunning. Thank you so much for sending that in. And yeah, those temperatures later in the week in Labrador are looking pretty hot, 29 degrees with sunshine.
Yeah.
Probably a humidex associated with that.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be very high because it looks like it's fairly dry. So that's kind of the saving grace, I guess, when it comes to those temperatures. But we'll see what happens.
Yep, we will see what happens. All right, well, that's it for us. Thank you so much for spending part of your Monday evening with us.
Good night.